The humble cardboard box. It's one of those things we see every single day, but have you ever stopped to think about how it's actually made? It's a fascinating journey of transformation, a brilliant piece of engineering that turns a mighty tree into a lightweight, sturdy container. These boxes are the unsung heroes of logistics, protecting everything from our morning cereal to the latest gadgets delivered to our doorsteps. They are everywhere, performing a crucial job. So, let's dive in and break down the entire process, from the forest floor all the way to the finished product. We're gonna peel back the layers, literally, and see what it takes to build one. Our story begins in a forest. The primary raw material for most cardboard is wood. Specifically, it's the wood fibers that we're after. Many of the trees used are fast-growing softwoods, like pine trees, often grown in sustainably managed forests. This means that for every tree that is harvested, new ones are planted to take its place, ensuring a continuous supply. It's also worth noting that a huge amount of cardboard is made from recycled paper and old cardboard boxes. This creates a brilliant circular system. But for new, or virgin, cardboard, it all starts with the tree. These trees are carefully selected before being harvested by specialized logging equipment. Once the trees are felled, the journey to the factory begins. The logs are stripped of their branches and cut down to more manageable lengths right there in the forest. They are then loaded onto massive lorries and transported to a paper mill. This is where the real alchemy happens. At the mill, the logs undergo a debarking process. A machine tumbles them around, stripping away all the outer bark, because it's the inner wood that contains the precious cellulose fibers needed for making strong paper. The leftover bark isn't wasted. It's often used as biomass fuel to help power the mill itself. It's a wonderfully efficient system. The next step is to turn these big logs into a mushy, wet substance called pulp. This is done through a process called pulping. The debarked logs are fed into a massive chipper, which, as the name suggests, chews them up into small, coin-sized wood chips. These chips are then cooked under immense pressure and heat in a huge vat called a digester, along with water and some chemicals. This process, known as the craft process, breaks down the lignin, which is the natural glue that holds the wood fibers together. What you're left with is a soupy brown mixture of wood fibers and water. This is our raw pulp, the fundamental building block for paper. Now we have our pulp, but it's still a long way from being paper. The first thing we need to do is clean it up. The pulp is washed and screened multiple times to remove any remaining bits of lignin, dirt, or other impurities. If the final product needs to be white, the pulp is then bleached. After the cleaning stage, it's time for more mixing. The pulp is pumped into a large tank where it's mixed with a huge amount of water. It's about 99.5% water and only 0.5% fiber at this point. Additives might also be mixed in here, like starches and resins, to give the final paper specific qualities like strength and water resistance. This watery slurry is now ready to become a solid sheet. It's pumped onto the front end of an enormous machine, often hundreds of meters long, called a paper machine. The mixture is sprayed in a wide, thin, even layer onto a massive, fast-moving mesh screen, almost like a giant conveyor belt. As the slurry travels along this screen, water begins to drain away through the mesh, aided by suction from below. The cellulose fibers start to interlock and mat together, forming a very fragile, wet sheet of paper. It's a delicate, high-speed ballet of water and fiber. The newly formed sheet is still incredibly damp and has no real strength, so it needs to be pressed and dried. It moves off the mesh screen and snakes its way through a series of massive, heavy rollers that squeeze out even more water. Think of it like wringing out a wet towel, but on an industrial scale. After the press section, the paper sheet is strong enough to hold itself together as it enters the dryer section. This part of the machine is a long, enclosed series of steam-heated cast iron cylinders. The paper weaves up and down over these hot rollers, and the remaining water evaporates until the paper is almost completely dry and strong. Finally, at the end of this colossal machine, the finished paper is wound onto enormous parent rolls. These rolls can be several meters wide and weigh many tons. This is the finished product of the paper mill, huge, continuous sheets of what is known as linerboard and medium. Linerboard is the smooth, flat paper that will form the outer surfaces of our cardboard box, while the medium is the paper that will be turned into the wavy, fluted layer in the middle. These giant rolls are then ready to be transported to a corrugating plant, where they will be assembled into cardboard. This is where we get to the really clever part, making the cardboard itself. The proper name for it is corrugated fiberboard, and it's essentially a sandwich. It's made by gluing a wavy, fluted sheet of paper between two flat sheets of linerboard. This structure is what gives a cardboard box its incredible strength and rigidity relative to its low weight. It's a simple concept, but it's a masterpiece of structural engineering. The magic happens inside a machine called a corrugator, a beast of a machine that can be longer than a football pitch. The giant rolls of paper, the medium and the linerboard, are loaded onto one end of this machine. The process starts with the medium paper, the one destined to become the wavy layer. This paper is fed into a set of large, corrugated metal rollers. These rollers are like giant gears with teeth, and they are heated with high-pressure steam. As the paper passes between them under intense heat and pressure, it is pressed into that familiar S-shaped wavy pattern. This is called fluting. The size of these flutes can be varied to create different types of cardboard with different strengths and thicknesses. The heat helps to set the shape, so the paper holds its new wavy form permanently. It's a bit like crimping hair, but for paper. Immediately after the flutes are formed, the tips on one side of the wavy medium are coated with a starch-based adhesive. Then, the first sheet of linerboard is brought into contact with it and bonded to it by heat and pressure. This creates what is known as single-face board, one flat layer glued to one wavy layer. This composite material then travels further down the corrugator machine. The tips of the flutes on the other side of the medium are now coated with glue. At this point, the second sheet of linerboard is introduced, pressed against the glued flutes, and bonded securely in place. The sandwich is now complete. We have created a continuous sheet of corrugated cardboard. This sheet passes through a final heated section to ensure the glue is fully cured, and the bond is permanent and strong. At the end of the long corrugator, a slitter scorer machine cuts the massive sheet down to the required width for the specific box order being produced. It also pre-creases the board where the folds will eventually be. Finally, a chopper knife cuts the sheets to the correct length. What started as 3 separate rolls of paper has now become a stack of flat, sturdy cardboard blanks, ready for the final steps. Our flat cardboard blanks are now ready to be turned into actual boxes. The next stage often involves printing. Most boxes have something printed on them, whether it's a company logo, product information, or handling instructions. This is typically done using a process called flexographic printing. The cardboard blanks are fed through a large printing press, which has flexible printing plates mounted on rotating cylinders. Each cylinder applies a different color of ink. As the blank passes through, the plates transfer the design onto the cardboard surface with incredible speed and precision. It's a highly efficient way to print large volumes of boxes. After printing, the blank needs to be cut and creased into its final shape. This is done on a machine called a die cutter. You can think of a die as being like a giant industrial-strength biscuit cutter. It's a flat board into which sharp steel rules for cutting and blunt steel rules for creasing are embedded in the exact pattern of the unfolded box. The cardboard blank is fed into the machine, and the die is pressed down onto it with immense force. This single action cuts out the box shape, punches any necessary handholes or windows, and reinforces all the fold lines, all at the same time. We are now incredibly close to having a finished box. The die-cut blanks are flat and still have a manufacturer's joint, which is a tab or flap on one side that needs to be glued to the other side to form the box's seam. This is handled by a machine called a folder gluer. The flat blanks are fed into this machine one by one. As they travel through it on a conveyor belt, a precise jet applies a line of strong, fast-drying adhesive to the joint tab. Mechanical arms then swiftly fold the blank along its main creases and press the glued tab firmly against the opposite panel, holding it for a moment to create a secure bond. The boxes are now folded flat for easy shipping and storage, but they are essentially assembled. They emerge from the folder gluer, are automatically counted into stacks, and then bundled together. These bundles are stacked onto pallets, ready to be sent to the client, perhaps a food manufacturer, an electronics company, or an online retailer. And that's it. The journey is complete. From a tree in a forest, through the pulping and papermaking process, to the creation of the corrugated sandwich and the final cutting and folding, a simple yet brilliant cardboard box has been born, ready to start its own journey protecting goods all over the world.